Hi, everyone, and welcome to week 5. Sorry, there might be a little noise in the background. I live on a pretty busy street, and so everybody seems to be coming out. All right, so here we are, and we are focusing for the rest of the semester on treating trauma. So let's just start here. I don't know that there's a video here yet. No, that's what this video is for. There are some previous videos, though, that I might encourage you to watch if you haven't already. There's one where I talk about the elements of therapy, the kinds of things that we want to think about when we're working with people that have been traumatized. And we might safely assume that most of the people that we work with have experienced trauma. We don't want to say to them, tell me about your trauma right away. Sometimes what we want to do is build their skills so that they can focus on working through the trauma or even talking about the trauma. That can be quite activating for some people. And then there's also a video about the elements of trauma, meaning things like safety and relationship, and those are all the ways that people are in general affected by trauma, regardless of what kind of trauma or the extent of the trauma. The areas of our well-being are influenced by the trauma and in general in those areas that I speak about. And if we're thinking about those areas, that can lead us to a therapeutic approach that could be most beneficial for anybody that's experienced trauma, whether we know they have or not. Okay? I have a couple other words to say about trauma treatment that I'll add in here in a few minutes. Okay, so this week we're focusing on, again, Perry and Salzwitz. This is called A Picture, Not a Label is the chapter. It's a great chapter. I love this. I love the whole book. There's everything about it is amazing and traumatizing, potentially. You're still working on the Rothschild book, and there's pages to read in van der Kolk. Here's a Tommy Thoreau, who was a psychology student at Widener, became a PhD, gave a presentation about breathing. He was a biofeedback practitioner and really great at what he did. So he did this presentation about breathing, and it's really worth taking the time to look at it. Our discussion this week doesn't focus on the Perry and Salzwitz book. Instead, it focuses on a film called Antwone Fisher. And perhaps many of you have seen this film before, but we're going to look at it from a trauma perspective. So you'll need to rent it. Maybe you already own it like I do. And some way you need to get your hands on the film so you can watch it. Then we have here, this is Dr. Siegel's video about working with Ray and his somatic experience. So this whole idea that we're hearing over and over again from Rothschild and Siegel and van der Kolk are all about how our body is affected and how our brain is affected in a way that we don't necessarily think about. So I'm just going to do this real quick, and so you can think about it. Information comes in through our brain in the back of our brain. That's where it's initially processed. That's because we need to know for our own well-being and our survival whether or not we are in a dangerous situation. And the back of our brain, its job is to sort through that and say, I need to send an alarm, or we're all good. And if that happens, if that alarm goes off, that's our sympathetic nervous system activating. Things happen. Our breathing speeds up, our eyesight is better, our heart rate speeds up, our gastrointestinal tract shuts down. I might have mentioned this before. All of those things are managed back here in the cerebellum, in the occipital lobes, the hearing, sight, all of those things are addressed toward the back of the brain. That information then is passed on to the middle of our brain where the limbic system is. And in the limbic system, we're talking about the amygdala and hippocampus and some other very important organs that take that information and say, what do I need to do with it now? Is it something I should remember? Should I remember it today in our working memory? Should I keep it in the back of my mind forever? And how important is that piece of information? If it's really, really important, then more emotional disturbance is going to be attached to that memory or that thought before it becomes processed into a memory. If everything is copacetic, then that information will move through the middle of our brain to the frontal part of our brain. This is where we think. This is how we make decisions, know what to do. But if we are traumatized over and over again, then the information that comes into the back of our brain is processed partially in the middle of our brain can get stuck there. So people that have been traumatized are really more in a feeling state, and this informs our body. And that's why van der Kolk talks about, you might not have read about this yet, but you will, van der Kolk talks about the importance of things like yoga and EMDR, because these are ways that help the body process what's happened. Many people that have had traumatic experiences who are really symptomatic about that trauma, that information is not processed in the frontal part of the brain. So they are not good candidates for talk therapy. We need to start with things that are going to work on the somatic part of our body and the part that operates the somatic parts of our body, the part of our brain in the back. Does that make sense? So when we say, hey, oh, look at your trauma history. Oh my gosh, it's terrible. Let's talk about it. That's not the best place to start. We need to build coping strategies. We need to work on arousal, emotional arousal. Can we help this person figure out how to calm down that sympathetic nervous system by activating the parasympathetic nervous system? When the parasympathetic nervous system, though, is overactivated, that's when we see people freeze. Fight and flight, so sympathetic. Freeze is parasympathetic. Okay? Hope that makes sense. We're talking about therapy. Let's start our therapy with the back of the brain and not the front. That might take a little practice, though, right? Because we're all trained to think that we need to talk about it. That's not always the best way through. Okay. This is just a reminder about where to upload things. We'll get to that in a minute. Here is the discussion. So, before watching the film, perhaps you want to come here and copy and paste the list of questions so that you can observe the film for these things as you work through watching the film. All right? And so let me clarify a couple of things. What engages Antoine in the therapy is not that he committed a crime. When he's sitting in the office with the therapist, and this is not I'm not giving anything away, you'll see it pretty quickly, and he's not willing to speak about anything. What helps him get to the point where he can then begin to talk to the therapist? Okay? There does need to be some talking. I'm not saying that he needed talk therapy right away, but he needed to be able to talk to the therapist right away. Okay? Then how does Antoine change during the therapy? What changes in his therapist? We cannot delude ourselves into thinking that we will never be affected by doing therapy with people. We will always be changed by the people that we work with. How conscious are we of that change? So then once Antoine is finished with therapy, what does he need to reintegrate into society after trauma therapy? So there's before therapy, there's during therapy, and now there's after therapy. What does he need in after therapy? Okay? And then a comment on the consolidation of his gains. So gains don't just happen in one session. There's something that happened over a period of time. So what happens over a period of time that consolidates his increasing well-being? All right. What does Antoine need to trust people outside of the therapeutic relationship? Sometimes the therapeutic relationship is the very first opportunity the person has had to have a safe relationship with another person. But now they're going to go out and meet with somebody who's not a therapist. What do they need to build some trust? And then, do you have any concerns about the therapist's behavior? You might even think back to when Dr. Perry first met with Tina and some of the things that he did when he met with Tina. That might have been outside of what we think are therapeutic boundaries. We want to have a conversation about this. Like, who set the boundaries and where are the boundaries? Okay? There is no response for this post. You're just going to post by Thursday. I'm sorry, your initial post is due by Sunday. You get a couple of extra days to work on this. Okay? You can turn it in anytime before Sunday, though. Now, then we have a series of technique demonstrations. Naomi will come here and post this. So let's just go back and look at the whole picture. We are here in week 5. I always worry when I'm scrolling really fast through that if somebody has motion sickness, I'm going to make them up their stomach upset. All right. So we have 4 technique demonstrations, and that each person's going to come here and post their technique here. They're going to post their video, attach the written part, and then they're also going to come here and upload the written part that has the video link on it so that I can grade it. Okay? This week, your trauma explanation summary video is due. And this is what you're doing with your partner or partners. And you'll follow the instructions. You'll also watch the video instruction. In the very first week, Dr. Burrell and I made a video for you in the same format as what you're doing here. Just to give you an example of how we're going to, I just talked to Dr. Burrell. She doesn't talk back. This is our way of assessing your ability to be able to explain trauma to somebody, the impact of trauma to somebody. So after, this is due on Sunday in week 5, only one person needs to upload it here. And then one person needs to come to here, this place, and upload it here. So in week 6, everybody will come to this place first to watch a video. You'll watch a video and then you'll go and write about the video. The questions about each video are a little bit different. So you might want to watch a video and then comment, and then watch a video and comment. All right? Okay, and that is it for this week. All right, if you have any questions about anything, please feel free to message me in the inbox in Canvas. Okay? Thank you so much. Bye.